gift that I might have had at an early age. You see, I grew up quite poor. My mother, she was a single mother making $1.75 an hour, and we lived in a clean home. We loved our home, but it was generously called a single-wide mobile home. There was nothing really wide about it. We had a couch, a chair, and a macrame plait hanger. You got to remember the 70s, right? Some of you, the macrame. My granny, if you stood still long enough, she would macrame around you. But she envisioned herself as being quite the seamstress, so I wish I could tell you that most of my clothes were hand-me-downs. I can't, because all my new garments came hot off the press of my grandmother's sewing machine. Now, you might think that's so sweet, bless her heart, but you don't know two things about my granny. One is she can only sew with elastic, and the other one is she will only shop off the clearance bin at the fabric store because a good steward never pays full price for fabric. So I've always been behind in the fashion trends. I wore elastic waist pants with multicolored elephants and choo-choo trains and flowers and what ever fabric nobody else wanted. That's what I wore to school. And then I was somewhere in the mid-70s, still behind in the fashion world. She figured out how to make the maxi dress with elastic. Do you remember the maxi dress? Goes to your ankles. And when I complained about the waistline, the picture must be up. When I complained about the waistline, her solution was to make an apron. So this is how I went to school as a young child. So you can see that my fashion sense has been a work in progress since a very young age. So the fact that I'm helping out with a fashion show is kind of funny to me. When I was 9, my mother remarried. Actually, I'll tell you this real quick. She remarried and we moved to Lower Alabama, which was a bit of a culture shock. Not for the reasons you're thinking, though. Because suddenly I found myself living in a brick house on a corner lot. And our clothesline had 4 strings. We were the la-ti-da people of the neighborhood. And I had never been a la-ti-da person. And I was really kind of perplexed by the whole South Alabama culture, because I quickly came to realize that all the ladies there and the young girls my age really cared about fashion. And I really didn't. But they really did. And there were like all of these rules. I'm talking hair bows, batons, beauty pageants. And I just stood there thinking, there ain't a hair bow in existence that will match my pants. And then they proceeded to tell me things like, well, ladies never wear white after Labor Day. And I'm thinking, shoot, my favorite pair of secondhand shoes were my white vinyl go-go boots. And honey, you can wear those all year long in my world. And I did. And then there was rules like your belts had to match your shoes. And that one really cracked me up because I was thinking, none of my breeches have belt loops. They're all elastic. I think I was 11 before I had a pair of pants that had belt loops, or pockets for that matter, because you know those are hard to sew too. So being fashionable really was a challenge for me growing up, and bit of a culture shock. And I guess I learned a little bit of my fashion sense from visiting the hair salons that were in town. Now, this was a really tiny town. Had, you know, one bank, one pharmacy, one gas station, the Piggly Wiggly, of course. And but there were 2 beauty parlors. They were on opposite sides of town, which meant they were about 3 streets apart. So it's a really tiny town. There was Martha Ann's beauty shop on the west side of town, but we didn't go there because she was Southern Baptist and a little too worldly for our taste, so we didn't want to line her coffers. So we chose to go to Connie's Cut and Curl, which was located on the other side of town. Now, Connie's husband was very handy with the hammer and the nails, because somehow this man managed to turn half of their single carport, single car carport into her salon. Half of a single car carport into her salon. It could hold 3 people. Well, 4 if you sat on somebody's lap. But when you stepped in, you could immediately sit down in the hair drying chair, or you could take 3 steps forward and sit down in the cutting chair. And if you were waiting on your mama or just hanging out for whatever reason, you had to do it outside. And so Connie's husband, unfortunately, wasn't as good with plumbing, so there was a window, and he had a spigot and a water hose and a bucket there in case she needed extra rinse. And I ain't kidding. Wish I was making that up. So I would often go around to the side and turn the bucket upside down and stand on the bucket and watch the girls getting their hairs done. Because there was nothing to be done with my hair. Well, and there were probably other reasons too. Now, I am proud to say that in my family, we don't gossip. But we did go to Connie's to catch up on the local prayer request. Connie was good at keeping us abreast of the prayer request in town. And so if the window was down, I would be peering in. If the window was up, I'd brace my elbows on it and watch the women getting their hair done. The cheerleaders would come in to get their hair done. And I would tell the other prissies out there running around, shh, they're pausing for prayer requests. They'd all come running and we'd listen, then get on our bikes and go share the news, the prayer request, yeah, fashion just kind of eluded me. But in the process of that, I began to notice the cheerleaders. They would come in to get their hair done, and thus began a fascination with cheerleading. That's really where I wanted to go with this, is that I'm ashamed to say I really, really wanted to be a cheerleader. Any cheerleaders in here? Oh, okay. 1. Kim. 2. Okay. I see 2. Well, to me, they were the epitome of all things beautiful. Poise, charm, grace, and flowing blonde locks of hair with her Farrah Fawcett bangs. As a matter of fact, I think we have a picture. You can see why I was mesmerized by their beauty, can't you? And wanted to be just like them. And their cute little outfits. Unfortunately, it's those cute little outfits that was preventing me from being on the cheerleading squad, because my mama and my daddy said, I'm sorry, those are entirely too immodest. You can't do that. But being the creative type that I was, and handy with a piece of elastic, I took my white pillowcase and I cut the bottom off, ran a seam of elastic through it, slipped my feet through that little sucker, pulled it up, and I had a white pillowcase miniskirt. I paired it with my white vinyl go-go boots and my pom-poms from Bill's Dollar Store, and I could practice for hours in my bedroom, doing all the cheers, the chants, the jumps, the herkies, the toe touches. Now today, if you ever see me touching my toes, call 911. Because something's being cut off, some valuable air supply or blood flow. I don't know, but that's not a good thing today. But back then, I could do it without medical assistance. And I would go to the football games and I'd watch the cheerleaders, because that's who I wanted to be. And my favorite part of the football game actually had nothing to do with the game. It happened before the game. The players would all amass on, after they do their warm-ups, they would amass on the north end of the end zone, and then they would leave the field. And I guess they had a brief team meeting maybe, and then they would circle around behind the bleachers and they would show back up in the south end. And meanwhile, all the cute little cheerleaders would go running down to the south end, and you would hear this chant begin, build it up, build it up, build it up, 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 up. And they would keep going, and they would start building a little pyramid, and 4 of them would break off into pairs, and they'd climb onto the shoulders of the other, and they would hoist into the air these giant banners proclaiming our team to be number 1. And I just loved watching that, and I wanted to be that so bad. Standing high on the shoulders, waving the banner, and then the home team plowing through and rushing down the length of the field. And that was my dream. The day came that my parents finally relented a little bit and said, Shoran, you can try out under one condition. I'm sure you've heard those kind of things before. I said, okay, what's the condition? You can be a cheerleader if you wear sweatpants or if your skirts go to your knee. I was torn. But then I figured, hey, I've never been fashionable anyway. Sure, I'll try out. So I did. I jumped and kicked and chanted and cheered with the best of them. And later that afternoon, they posted the list of who had made it, and my name was on the list with an asterisk beside it. Nobody else had an asterisk beside their name. But my name was on the list. So I had 24 hours to delight in the goodness of being on the team. And the next day was our first team meeting, and I couldn't wait. And I got there, and she was passing out catalogs to all the other girls of the uniforms and saying, you circle now the outfits you like and those short sets you think are cute. And I was waiting on mine, and she came over, and my catalog was much thinner than what the other girls had. She came over to me, and she said, now, Shoran. I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, we were impressed with your ability. I said, oh, thank you. But we are concerned about your appearance. Oh. So we have decided to give you the honor of being our mascot. Now, I need to mention that our mascot was a falcon, which meant I was just going to be a glorified chicken running up and down the sidelines. And she handed me this little catalog. She had marked the page for the bird mascots, and I could either be a chicken in a green shirt or a chicken in a yellow shirt. Those were my choices. And I'm just thinking, God, this isn't what I dreamed of being. I did not dream of being a chicken on the sidelines, Lord. I wanted to be a flyer on the shoulders, waving the banner. But that wasn't to be, and my parents ended that dream when they said they weren't paying $600 for a chicken suit. So, first game of the football season, I decided I'd join the pep club. Can't get me down. I was going to be up in those stands cheering one way or the other. And right before the game began, the team amassed in the north end zone, and they were getting ready to walk off when one of the cheerleaders came running to the fence yelling my name. And I was so excited to even be acknowledged. I ran down the bleachers and met her at the fence and said, what? She said, Shoran, the players have left things out on the field. We need your help. And I'm like, okay. She said, grab a garbage bag and go pick it all up. And she took off. I was thinking, grab a garbage bag and go pick it all up. That's kind of a humble task. I wanted to be the person on the shoulders waving the banner, but you want me to pick up the trash on the field. But it was a job that needed to be done, and I'm not one to shirk responsibility. So I grabbed my garbage bag and I headed out onto the field, and I began picking up the discarded water cups and the discarded water bottles and some of the gear that was left behind and putting it in my garbage bag. And then a funny thing happened. The girls down on the other end began their cheer, and in the distance I could hear it. Build it up, build it up, build it up, 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 up. And I looked up, and all the fans are standing and they're cheering because the team's getting ready, but I'm in the middle of the field. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm in the middle of the field. And they're cheering and they're building a pyramid. This is awesome. I had my garbage bag, and I noticed the cheerleaders were waving at me, and I was waving back. And they waved some more, and I had my garbage bag waving back. This is awesome. Thank you. And then the next thing you know, the team comes plowing through the sign, heading straight for me, and I'm still cheering with my garbage bag when I realize, oh my, I might be in the way. So I sprinted toward the fence as the home team rushed by. And then I just collapsed in a fit of giggles of just the hilarity and the excitement of the moment of being out on the field with the crowd cheering, cheerleaders chanting and waving as the home team rushed by. So you're probably thinking, what in the world does that have to do with the Bible? Well, nothing. There are no hair bows or batons or kahanis cut and curling here, but the Bible does have quite a bit to say about clearing fields. So if you have your Bible with you, or a device that has your Bible, I'd love for you to open with me to Isaiah chapter 57, verse 14. And it will be